Hi, beautiful souls. It's Sadhana, and welcome back. This is part 2 of my indie deck collection. And in the previous video, I included 9 different of my indie tarot decks. And today we're going to carry on. So this is number 10. This is the Hezekiah Tarot by Hezekiah Tarot. It comes in this amazing box with the gold gilded features on the box. It's a really nice, sturdy box. And over time, it has loosened up, so it's quite easy to open. Two-part box. It has a fairly substantial little white book, which has been really helpful because some of the cards are a little different. It is definitely a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but she has put her own spin on some of the cards. For example, the Judgment is one that comes to mind, and we will look at some other cards as well too. This deck is one of the most beautiful decks I have to shuffle. You can see it has the shiny gold on the side. It is wearing a little bit, but not too bad. It is a glossy deck. As far as I was talking about decks that are slippery in the last video, so the Sawyer's Tarot is definitely my most slippery deck if you're an overhand shuffler. This is up there for sure. But yeah, it's a really, really lovely cardstock, and regardless of the way you shuffle, it's really nice. You can see here that it's very brightly colored. You have a fairly large border on the bottom, and some of them are definitely manga style, and others are more, it's quite a mixture of styles. I love that Hermit card. Yeah, so I have found this deck to read really, really well, and it has so many features that I like. Really strong in the quirk card department as well too. The major card I chose to pull is the Fool, and the reason for that is probably similar reason to some of the cards I pulled for the Sawyer's Path Tarot, and that is I really like it when the deck creators switch up the age, they switch up the gender, and they kind of get you thinking in a new way about a particular card. So the beauty in this, of course, for me is that there is, it's never too late to start a journey. It's never too late to start over again. And I just love the youthfulness and the spryness and the step of this Fool. The aces are really beautiful. Here's the Ace of Cups. So we have an offering here of a cup of green tea, which of course speaks also to tea ceremony, but it's really, really lovely to have that cup of ocha. We're also getting a cup of ocha or a cup of coffee here with the King of Cups, and he's just looks so friendly and so approachable, so that's why I chose him as my favorite quirk card. And it was really difficult to choose a favorite minor card. 6 of Swords, coming up for a breath of fresh air and actually having the courage to, you know, when she was below the water, she probably felt quite suffocated, and I imagine that's kind of how one feels in the 5 of Swords. And the 6 of Swords is really giving yourself that permission to move forward, and that is what she has done by coming up to the surface and deciding to move on and, you know, not drown, metaphorically speaking. So yeah, so that is the Hezekiah Tarot by Hezekiah Tarot. And here is the Crystal Unicorn Tarot by Pamela Chen, and the illustrations are by Lisa Higuchi. This is a really kind of fun, very pastel colored tarot deck. Comes in a really nice sturdy box. Cards I pulled for you. There is a small little white book with this one. And in the guidebook for the majors, there is an association with a crystal. So if you like crystals and you like to kind of study and put different levels and layers onto the major cards, so you could use that. You could use that for that. So for example, the Hierophant is Lapis Lazuli. And then for the minors, most of the unicorns have a crystal on their cutie mark, so on their flank. their right or left flank there is a crystal, but there's not a specific crystal associated with each of the minor cards. And so you get a very Rider-Waite-Smith flavor of message for each of the cards. And then at the end, we have a few spreads. All right, so these are the backs of the cards, very, very colorful. If you look at the edges of these cards, you can see the multiple layers. I was tempted to edge these in pink or some kind of a pastel-y color, but I haven't done that. These are a matte. They are fairly cardboardy. They remind me a little bit of the Lumina Tarot. It's not a deck that you want to riffle shuffle because of that quality. They're quite stiff that way, but if you want to riffle shuffle, you can. They are reversible and super fun and super cute. So if I fan them, they're borderless too, which is nice. I have not used this deck a lot, so you can see it sticks together quite a bit, so they're not fanning really well. I bought a unicorn oracle to use with these, and my intention was to use this with younger people, not so much for readings for myself. All right, some of my favorite cards. Here's the Empress. I like that the background color is green. I feel the fertility here. It's really lovely. The richness of the emerald too, which is her gemstone. There is a sense of family in the Six of Wands, and that appeals to me. Usually in the Six of Wands, you see the other, I don't know if you call them soldiers, marching in behind the person who is the victor. But to me, this feels like family and success and family, and it has a slightly different energy to it. And also with the light mauve background. So that's why I pulled that one. The aces are very Rider-Waite-Smith-ish. You do not see the whole unicorn. You just see the hoof of the unicorn offering the element of that suit. And all of the aces have a rainbow in the background. And then for a court card, I couldn't decide between King of Wands and Queen of Pentacles. Let's look at the King of Wands. So this one's quite well done. I love all of the fiery elements in this. So we've got the lizard down here. We've got the salamander or the lizard on the blanket. And then we've got all these dragons here. That's one of the reasons why I like that. I like that he's surrounded by his element. And the Queen of Wands too, right? She's surrounded by her element everywhere. So those two really spoke to me. So that is the Crystal Unicorn Tarot. And then we have the Dark Mansion Tarot. This is by Tarotica Studio, and it comes in a hinged box. This is the standard version, and my hinged box is holding up fine. The backs are blue, which of course is different from the special edition, which has a brown back with a gemstone in the middle. So you can see the inside of the box. There's lots of walkthroughs of this on YouTube if you haven't already seen this deck. It's edged in black, and it is an amazing cardstock. It just feels like it's going to hold up for a long time to all kinds of shuffling, and to find that perfect balance between not too cardboardy and not too thin for a matte cardstock, I think is the secret to a perfect cardstock for a deck. Because who doesn't like matte cards? And if we get them too thick, then they don't shuffle really well. And this one is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so if you fan, and again, this deck I have not used a lot. It's not fanning really well, so the cards are sticking together. I do need to spend more time breaking in this deck. I almost feel like once this deck gets a little older, if the edges I don't know if you ever have this, like when you edge a deck, do you feel like it takes weeks and weeks before it actually dries and you can, you know, get that smooth feeling again? So small black borders, fairly dark. Some of the cards are quite bright. You've got your Ace of Wands there. Really interesting lighting. Love the line art. So many details in each of the cards. And I don't know anybody that has not spoken well of this deck. And here are a few of the cards that spoke to me. This is the Five of Cups. The aces are all very bright and beautiful and full of detail. Well, just like all the other cards, you can see the gems all on the cup here, and the raised design of the cup. You've got a dragonfly here, all kinds of detail down below. Also in the borders. The borders are just beautiful. And here's another cup card. Thought they did a really good job with the Eight of Cups. I prefer to have the moon than the sun in the Eight of Cups. Some cards I know we have them moving towards the sun, but because this is a challenging, emotional situation kind of card, to be moving and guided by the full moon, I think is really beautiful. I love that there's a ship in this card as well too. When a deck doesn't kind of show the path or where the person is going or what is guiding the person, I think it makes the Eight of Cups a little difficult. I chose the Page of Wands. I think she's lovely. You can just kind of see her feistiness, her perkiness there. And here is one of the court cards that I really like, the Chariot. So many details and a really thoughtful, well done deck. This deck does not come with a guidebook of any kind. It is a Rider-Waite-Smith based deck, and given time to observe all of the details in each of the cards, you can even peel back more layers for each of the cards. This is the Texture Tarot by Lisa McLaughlin. It comes in a large paper tuck box. Little white book and the cards. These cards have larger rounded corners than a lot of decks do. So let's have a look at the little white book. So quite a substantial little white book. At the beginning you get the creator's notes on her inspiration for making this deck and how she sees the deck. And then we go right into the cards. So for most of the cards, we have a long list of keywords rather than a paragraph. So short phrases and keywords, and then the same for the minors. And some have more than others. There's quite a range of keywords for some of the cards. So if you struggle with associations, I think she's done a really good job with listing many potential interpretations. As far as paper quality goes, this is a very different quality of card. I don't know anything about GSM, about paper, but this deck, I do definitely recommend you do not riffle shuffle this deck. You will damage and you will bend your cards without a doubt. And it's really, really unfortunate. It appears like it is a good enough cardstock to do that. So if I compare this to the unicorn that we looked at, you can see there's a natural bend to these cards. There's a flexibility. This one, if I bend it any further, I'm going to cause a crease in the card. And it's really, really unfortunate. So yeah, so just be careful shuffling this deck. And then let me show you some of my favorite cards. Here is the beautiful Death card. This is a mixed media collage style deck. I just have to show you another major. There's the Hermit. I think she's really, really precious. I can feel, actually touching these cards here, that I do have creases in several of these cards. Here's the Four of Swords. I love that. It's absolutely so, so sweet. The 10 of Cups, I'll tell you why I love this card, and it is because it could be same gender and it could be opposite gender, and that really appeals to me. I like that she's kind of included that in this deck. The wands are lovely, super fun. So there's your Ace of Wands. And I absolutely cannot choose one court card to show you because there's so many brilliant court cards. Here's the Queen of Pentacles. So well done. And King of Cups. So that is a texture tarot by Lisa McLaughlin. As far as I'm concerned, the only problem with the deck is the cardstock quality. All right, here's the Moonchild Tarot by Danielle Noel. This box, of course, has received lots of compliments. This is a textured, very beautiful box. This moon here is raised on the front. The box slides apart really nicely, so you're not wrestling to get it open. These are the backs of the cards. You have, again, shiny gold on the back. This deck does come with extra cards. So there's a Moonchild card, Divine Wisdom, and a Shadow Work card, which I do not use. They were sitting at the bottom of the box. This is an absolutely beautiful little white book. Lots of colored pages, full page pictures. The design is amazing. So in the introduction, you have lots of background information. Here we have information about red moon or white moon. Different phases of the moon. So if you're not familiar with, you know, the moon and the moon cycles and moon phases, you've got lots of background information here. This guidebook is so well done. I forgot how wonderful it is. So you have a card description here. It includes keywords, astrological associations, gemstone associations, a longer description, and then a reverse description. And of course you have that for each of the cards when it comes to the minors. So for example, here's the Three of Cups. You have just as much information for the minors. Really amazing. At the back, she has a few unique spreads. The Isis spread, the Lunar spread, the Triple Goddess, the Chalice spread. If you've been waffling on whether or not to get this deck, this guidebook definitely adds significant value to the deck. You have on the sides the matte gold gilding. Elemental symbols are on the cards. I've used this deck quite a bit and it still doesn't slide really well. So there is a sense of stickiness to the deck. You can see the colors. So we've got lots of golds and yellows and muted purples and blues. I think the border with the title is the perfect size. Doesn't interfere or take away from the card, and the cards are borderless. These cards are larger cards. Here is the Crystal Unicorn Tarot, which is a standard size tarot, so you can see that these are both wider and longer. Here's my favorite ace. This is the Ace of Wands. So the wands are very Rider-Waite Smith. For the most part, this is a Rider-Waite Smith clone. There are a few cards that have kind of taken their own direction, and so the guidebook will really help you out with that. Here's the amazing Hermit card. There is, this is really beautiful. I like the energy. I love the color. I love the different perspective of the Hermit here. Here is the Eight of Swords. There's some different layers to this Eight of Swords. Of course, there's a traditional Eight of Swords around her, and on her front side, she has a cauldron, and she is creating something magical here. And love that she has the veil over her. We can see her face. Like I said with the textured tarot, if you're looking for same-sex imagery, you get a bit of that in this deck as well too. So here you have the Four of Wands, which looks like two females to me. And this definitely is a heavy female energy kind of deck. I do not love all of the court cards in this deck. Some of them, here's one that I do like. This is the Page of Pentacles. You can see her in silhouette reaching up towards the coin and lots of nature imagery around her. I do like the King of Swords, that he's wearing armor. He also seems to have chainmail on his hair as well too. And I did mention the elemental signs before, and I believe the elemental signs are only on the court cards. So that is the Moonchild Tarot by Danielle Noel. All right, carrying on, here is the Lumina Tarot by Laura Naletta. Her creator studio name is Inner Hue. This comes in a large box. Here's my thank you cards. The guidebook is square, so that comes resting on the top of the box. And then the cards are not separated, yay, they come here in this part of the box. You also get at least in the version that I received, you get a bag as well too. So this is a cotton drawstring bag, and that's where I have my cards in here. Okay, so let's have a look at the guidebook. So quite a substantial guidebook. Creator's vision, the creation process, and then we have some introductory information. So getting familiar with the cards, how to use the cards, things like that. And then she talks about full moon and new moon, and then some different spreads. So she has a chakra spread, manifestation spread. And then we go to the elements, I believe, yes. And so there's a page talking about each of the elements, the animal symbols, astrological symbols, personality traits, and things like that. So a really thorough kind of introduction to the cards. And then when we get to the majors, we have the full black and white picture of the card. This portion here is the upright, and then we have the shadow reading, which could be either from a positional or from a reverse position, like a position in a spread, or if the card appeared in reverse, upside down. So yes, you have that for every single card, and then for the minors, you have exactly the same amount of information. So really helpful guidebook. And one of the things I have to say is that often when I get a new deck, I read the guidebook once and then I don't go back to it. And just going through this today, I think this is a guidebook that, yeah, I will definitely have another reread of, because I forgot how much information there is here. Here's the beautiful Ace of Pentacles. Okay, and then at the back, I believe there's just a little bit about the creators. So we have the graphic designer and then the artist. So yeah, so really nice guidebook. Let's have a look at the cards. I think I mentioned this deck already. This is a matte, fairly cardboardy stock. However, like the textured tarot, it does not crease. So that means you can riffle shuffle it. And this deck is very, very well used. So it's a little clumpy in the riffle shuffle because, you know, I think when you have this kind of thick cardboard stock, it's just better to overhand shuffle. So the backs are black with these three symbols, and then on the front you have a very, very small white border. And on the white border you have the copyright, unfortunately. So you can see that on every single card. And then looking at the color palette, you will see there are quite a few blacks, dark cards, and I guess from the edges you don't really get a good feel. Not too many cards are bright like this. So let me show you the cards that I pulled. Favorite major, favorite minor, and so forth. Here's the Hierophant. And I'm actually surprised she didn't rename this to the Shaman. This is one of my favorite Hierophant cards. You can see that you have the astrological symbols, you have the sacred geometry in the background, various symbols around his neck, including a cross and a mala. And yeah, just a really, really powerful Hierophant card. I also really like the Fool card in this deck. So there's the Fool if you haven't seen it. As far as minors go, this is one of my favorites. This is a Six of Swords. So no boat, no water, just kind of hope beyond the trees. And then very, subtly you can see the swords here in the forest in silhouette. I really like this Six of Swords. And here's another 6. So that's a 6 of Pentacles, and I think that works really, really well. The aces are very simple. There's your Ace of Rods, your Ace of Wands. So that clearly gets the message across. And again, beautiful, beautiful colors. Court cards. I'm not particularly fond of the court women in this deck. The court men, however, I think she's done some of them really, really well. So here's the King of Swords. So you can really get the energy of a King of Swords from that one. And yeah, I'll just show you one more. Here's the King of Pentacles. So if you're having trouble, with King energy, I think both of these images speak really well to the type of leadership that these kings exude. All right, next we have the Hezekiah Tarot by Mary Griffin. This deck is recently out of print, out of stock. However, if you go to Mary's Instagram page, Hezekiah Tarot, and you message her, she does have a few decks if you're willing to pay an exorbitant amount of money, like over $100. You could still probably get your hands on a deck. So this just went out of print early this year. This is a Fae deck. It has a very special energy to it. Hezekos was a special land that Mary named. It was in her garden. It's where she went to play as a child, I believe, with her brothers and sisters. So this is a really nice box, 2-part box. The guidebook actually looks like a school notebook. And then these are the card backs. So here you go. Again, a really nice guidebook, colored pictures. And so you have phrases, keywords, card meanings. Yeah, it's done really well. Not a lot for each card, but definitely enough to get you by. And this is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, so it's fairly easy to read this deck. There's not too many cards that go in their own direction. These are a little wider than a standard card. So here is a standard card, and so they're a little shorter and a little wider. The cardstock is really nice, and having larger cards and not too thick of cardstock is really nice because that means that you can shuffle them without breaking your thumbs. Okay, when I turn them over, you'll see that they are borderless and there's no bar at the top or the bottom for the titles. So all the cards do have a title on them, a number and a title, which is really helpful because some of them might be a little challenging to recognize. Yeah. And you'll see that the color palette, so you see lots of greens and purples, and it's very much in the garden kind of colors. Generally speaking, it's a very happy deck, and the gnome, I think the highlight of this deck are the gnome-like creatures, and they appear on the minor arcana only. So on the majors, you really do have a different feel. So you have more human-like characters on the majors. So there's the Lovers. I'll just get you another one. There's the Devil. So yeah, so you only get these gnome creatures on the minors. There's the Chariot. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the cards that I pulled. Now, as far as the court cards go, I think it's really, you either love them or you hate them. Many of them face straight forward, which I find really challenging, and they are head shots only. So they all have headdresses, and the headdresses are representative of their suit. So here we have like a wooden crown for the Queen of Rods. And if you are comfortable reading court cards, you will have no problem with this deck, but you don't have no background imagery and only a headshot for each of them. The aces, so we're in the suit of rods here, the suit of wands. So the background color is a plain, just like the court cards. So you get a really, really different look from the aces and the court cards to the minors. So the minors are fully illustrated, and I love the swords in this deck. So there is your 9 of swords, which is kind of an evolution from the 4 of swords. If you look at the 4 of swords, you can really see the progression here from the 4 to the 9. Here's the 4 of rods. So beautiful cards, completely, yeah, fully illustrated. Love, love, love the minors in this deck. I pulled a whole bunch here, but I'm not going to show you. So there's another example of the of a major arcana card. So they are not these gnome-like creatures. And there's a magician, right? So he doesn't look like one of the gnomes. Some people also really like this deck because of the multicultural aspects. So all of the humanesque figures in the courts and the majors represent a lot of different countries and cultures. So you have quite a few kind of worlds represented in this deck. So that's a Hezekiah Tarot by Mary Griffin. This is the Shemonit Tarot by Eden Galanter. This is a small deck of cards. Comes in a talk box. It's the back of the box, paper box. This deck is often on my altar. This is one of my go-to decks for myself. I have never used this with clients. I find this deck is it's very deep. It's very personal. It does come with a little white book, which you definitely need for this deck. It is an intuitive deck. It is not Rider-Waite-Smith based. While there may be some Rider-Waite-Smith elements to it, it is very much Eden's creation, and it takes a completely different direction for many of the cards. The guidebook is excellent. You do not get a ton of information for each card, but it is enough, and it's very concisely and really well written. She must be a very educated young woman, and I really kind of appreciate the poetic, lyrical writing that's included in here. This deck I used for my Wheel of the Year and my Year Ahead spread, and I refer back to this book all the time. One of the features of this deck is that 2 of the minor suits are a continuous story, which really helps to understand the energy of the cards. The backs are reversible. And I just wanted to show you that this deck is a small deck, little larger than Tarot of the Trees. So there's Tarot of the Trees. And then here is a standard tarot deck. So same width as a standard tarot deck, but definitely shorter and smaller. So the Tarot of Trees is definitely glossy. This one is not glossy. It is, you can see a shimmer there, but it is it doesn't have a shine to it. I have not edged this deck. I really should. It's starting to chip a little bit. When I fan it on this side, you'll see we have black borders. They could be a little bit thinner, and lots of blues and purples, and it's very what I want to say. The watercolors are washed, you know, like the technique of, she's really mastered watercolor painting. And then you have these kind of these ink line drawings on the watercolors, or in the watercolors. Really, really lovely. And there is one black and white card. That's the Fool card. Here's the Queen of Staves. So your Queen of Rods. And here's the Princess. Lots of emotion in the faces of the court cards. This is an absolutely brilliant Eight of Swords. So you can see here that the person here is using the swords to find their way out of this confusion, out of this crevice they have found themselves in, the tight spot they found themselves in. So they're using the swords as tools. There's something about the Eight of Swords that inspires a lot of creators. The aces are not recognizable as a Rider-Waite-Smith ace. So there you have the Ace of Cups. You can see her use of watercolor art and the beautiful colors in that particular one. And then the major that is one of my favorites is this one. So this is called Time. And that is your Hermit card. And just so you get a flavor for how this deck is so very special, let me read to you a little bit about Time. When the Hermit shows up, it indicates intentional solitude, removal from the world, and introspection. People who are in troubled relationships with their families, partners, friends, communities, and physical surroundings tend to have difficulty feeling as though they have a voice, and in finding the power and confidence to identify what they want and have the agency to achieve it. Separation and distance is required to retain a sense of identity and the sense of our own desires, opinions. The old hermit, Father Time, walks over the surface of his world without touching it. He is an acrobat rather than an infirm cripple. He has the skill to see without interfering. The sea may look opaque to us, but he sees clearly through the water and learns from observation. One of the other features about this guidebook is that she refers to other cards frequently, and so she draws the connections between different majors and minors, and it really helps to understand the nuances of this deck. So that is a Chemonette Tarot by Eden Galanter.